Okay, the $1,000,000 question. Who am I? So, like Aishwarya said, I'm Kruti and I'm a technical director based in Mysore. And I've been freelancing since early 2022. Um, and I create like easy to use modular adaptive toolkits for the clients. And so for those of you who don't know, I did not start off as an animator or a motion designer. Up until 2020, I did not even know the extent of how big this industry was. And I was very busy doing my PhD in spacecraft control engineering. But during COVID or just before COVID hit, I quit my PhD. I came back to India and I started. I think through School of Motion, I discovered which is like a side. So I did a motion graphics course in Hyper Island for a 1 year, and that's where I got introduced to coding in After Effects also. I got to do his course called Expression Session on School of Motion, which is like a very good intro course into coding and also to toolkits. And that's how I started. Anyway, that's enough about me. Uh, so, why do we even make toolkits? So for those of you who don't know, toolkits I would say are anything, not even like an AE file, but like any system that the client can use and produce animations very fast, like any title sequences that, or like intro and outros or lower thirds templates that you would probably see on like Motion Array or something like that. These are all very good examples of toolkits, and these are very huge time savers, right? And usually you would use like controllers in After Effects or like essential graphics panels to edit out content very fast and render out animations without even having to touch the timeline panel. And you can automate workflows. I think an example of this would be that you could create content, or like you could change content in just one comp and all of it is edited in multiple aspect ratios, stuff like that. And you could create complex rigs. For example, I would say um, plugins like joysticks and sliders, or like Ray Dynamic, if you're aware of it. They are all essentially just toolkits because they add expressions to your layers and lets you control the visual elements on your screen easily without having to put like some 100 billion keyframes essentially. um, so yeah, I don't want to talk too much about what toolkits can do, but rather I would show you instead. There are a couple of case studies, and one of my favorite case studies actually is Spotify Wrapped 2022. It was visually spectacular, and I had actually had no idea that this was done in After Effects. This was produced by Hornet, and the design and creative direction was done by Buko, but the technical direction was headed by Zach Lovat. So if you see this little demo that they posted on their website, you can see that everything is controlled using just drop downs. And of course there is a lot more going on there, but essentially all the colors, the background animations, the text and everything, they are controlled in After Effects and then rendered out in multiple formats, and then uploaded to Spotify server, I guess. And this is another very good example, again by Lovat. um, this is like a sports toolkit, and it's a good point actually that toolkits are used a lot in sports industry, because you have a lot of matches, and there will be a lot of content that you would want to post either to like the website or to socials pretty much after every week. For example, if you take Formula 1, they have like races every week, and each team has a lot of information to post on their socials after every race. So toolkits in such cases come in really handy. They don't have to spend hours designing elements over and over again, but they can just change uh, elements in a template and render things out very easily. So if you see this, uh, you can see that this was all done in After Effects. He's using markers to edit the timing of the animation and changing the layout of the composition just by toggling the layers on and off. And yeah, the text is, instead of controlling the text in the main layer, you have like this little panel on top where you control the text, and that is reflected in the main composition. And you can change the background elements using drop downs and stuff like that. So yeah, toolkits can come in really handy if there are lots of elements in your screen that needs to change often. um, so these are some really cool case studies that you can check out. But enough of that. I would rather show you how a toolkit actually works in real time. And the project that I'm about to show you is actually a personal project that I did, I think, in late 2022, just to test out how much I could push After Effects in terms of automation. And so this was weather display animation that I did using the data from openweathermap.org. So they have a lot of APIs that you can use, which gives you information about the weather forecast and the weather data based on the location that you input. So what I did was to get this information and design a, I don't know, a fairly simple composition that can display this information, I guess. So if you see on the screen, there is, I don't know, the animation is pretty simple, but there's a lot going on. You have like the city name that is displayed, and you have the temperature, the current temperature, the icon of like the main weather, like if it's cloudy or if it's raining, if it's snowing. And you have the weather forecast for the next few days. You have the humidity forecast for the next few days, and the description of the weather, the date, the sunrise and sunset time. so on. So the workflow of this starts with the brainstorming process. I would say brainstorming is really, 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 really important in projects like this, because the fusion of the creativity and technology starts right here. Even before like doing any mood boards or like doing any thumbnails or anything, the first thing I did was to actually go through the kind of data I would get out of this API, and then figure out what data that I want to be displayed on screen. Because as you can see, there is a lot of data that you can get out of this. Like there's, I don't know, pressure, the sea level, the ground level, the wind, um, and visibility and everything. So you should brainstorm very early on and decide what elements that you want to display on your screen and what elements are going to be modular. Like, are there elements that you want on screen that are there just to support the composition, or is every element on your screen going to be controlled by controllers or like JSONs or something like that? So yeah, the brainstorming process, it's very, very important. And only after that do I start like thumbnailing, and I would usually go through many iterations. I tend to keep the design very simple. I maybe it is a bad habit, because when I am designing, the technicality of it pretty much stays in my mind. So anytime I draw something on the screen, I am very aware of the fact that I would have to code it later on. So I feel like that kind of limits my creativity. But even regardless, you have to keep the technical aspect in mind while designing, because eventually it is going to be coded by someone. So as a technical director, I, even with like client projects, I tend to be pretty involved in the design process. Even though I'm not the one designing, I would have to give feedback on whether the design is getting too complicated to be automated or something like that. So yeah, you have to keep the technical aspect in mind while designing. And then before I come to this, let me actually show you the rig. Okay, so this is the project where you have the city name and everything. But how it actually takes the information is, let's say I want to see the weather in Delhi. I would save it. So this is JavaScript. This is not necessary for every After Effects toolkit project. This is just an experiment that I did. Usually, all the controlling and everything happens in After Effects, I would say. Anyway, so let's say I want to see the weather in Delhi, and I run this code. And if I go back to After Effects, it should essentially update. Yay, woohoo. And there are actually a lot of controllers also that can change how things are displayed, I guess. So I have a controller that changes uh, the imperial and metric units, and that is reflected everywhere, like not just the temperature, but like here the visibility is usually in kilometers, but it's changed to miles, and the temperature is changed everywhere. And I also have a 24-hour or 12-hour display controller or checkbox, which changes how the time is displayed. And and the animation controller, I guess. I want to reduce the clarity so that you can see. So this is a delay slider. All of my animation is controlled using these two keyframes. But if I change, let me actually play it once so that you can see how fast the animation is. And yeah, give it some time. It's just taking a little time to cache the playback. All right. So, okay, this is the animation speed in general. But let's say I want to speed it up, then I would change it, let's say, to this. Or if I want to slow it way down, let me actually change it to 0.6. You can actually see a big difference then. You can see that the animation has slowed down significantly. All the elements have like this cascading effect, kind of, where one element comes first, and after a delay of 0.6 seconds is when the rest of the elements come on. Anyway, so how this process works is, I don't want to overwhelm you by showing all the different layers. I'll come to that later. But essentially, this whole animation works with the help of JSONs. And JSON is actually a text file. It's, you could say it's just another kind of spreadsheet, but it has a very specific syntax to store the data. And After Effects actually works really well with JSONs as opposed to spreadsheets. I personally like JSONs a lot more. And this is how a JSON looks. Not like this, but like this. Um, so what my uh, script or my code is doing is that it is actually going through this URL. And when we say fetch, that's one of the functions in JavaScript that fetches the data, I guess. It fetches the data, and then I save all of the relevant data, because the data that I get out of the script is actually a lot. I can actually show it to you guys, show what response I actually get out of just the URL. Yeah, so this is what I get out of the URL. This is like nonsense. Like, I can't directly use this in After Effects because the temperature is in kelvins, the visibility is in, like, I don't know, meters, and like, yeah, the time is in like this Unix time code, which, I mean, if I look at this, I understand nothing. So a lot of data formatting goes before I actually save this data into a JSON. um, so this is what is happening here, and I wrote a few functions to actually change the time or temperature and stuff like that. Anyway, so once all of the data processing is finished, I save this data into a JSON. I have a path here that saves the data into this file. For example, if I change the city, um, let's say Mysore, because that's where I'm at, and run that. Okay, I have to first clear it. Yeah. So if I run this, ideally, this should update. Yeah, you can see the city is updated, the time, the sunrise and sunset data is more readable. I mean, it's not still very readable, but it's fine, I guess. um, and these files are actually imported in After Effects. I don't import them every time. These are imported into the file, and whenever I run the JavaScript file, these get updated, and every element that you see on the screen is somehow related to these two files. For example, if you see the city name, that's a comp here. What is happening is we have the JSON file here, and this is how the data looks like. Everything that you see here, like the city, sunrise, sunset, is a property in After Effects, and you can link the sliders or like your text, source text property, or like pretty much any property that you want to these properties in the JSON file. It pretty much works as any other footage. And so if you look at the city name, you can see that it is referring the city data JSON, and it is referring to the city property. And that is how pretty much every element is connected. And I have like more code going on here, but like I don't want to confuse you with more details. Like this is a little advanced coding. um, but yeah, like every element, like even temperature, if you see, it is, I've connected temperature to like a slider. Like this text is connected to a slider, and that slider is basically connected to the temperature property of the city data JSON. And all other processing, like converting the, like for example, if you see here, all the Fahrenheit and Celsius conversion happens in this layer, where I just have like some conditional statements that just says, okay, if the checkbox is true, then just display this, and if it is false, then display that. Just very simple coding there. But yeah, pretty much every element works like this. And there is actually a lot of path animations and everything going on, but whenever I do animations like this, I tend to keep the design native to After Effects, especially the rectangles that you see here. Even like these rectangles, they are just shape layers in After Effects. I don't convert them into Bezier paths, because I feel like controlling the sizes of these rectangles using expressions is a lot easier than controlling the points on a path. Like I can show how this path's code looks like, and it is a lot. um, there is, yeah. Yeah, to control the path, this is how my coding looked like, because I had to control a lot of points. I think there were like some 40 different points on this path. I don't know if I can actually see the points in this, but let's see. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't think you can see the points in this because they're like very, very, very small. But yeah, there were like some 40 different points on this, and it was very hard to get that right. So another that brings me to one point. It's actually very important, I would say, to stay organized when it comes to coding in After Effects. I mean, if the expressions are very simple, I guess you don't have to worry too much about like naming conventions or stuff like that. But when a project gets bigger, and especially the sports projects that I showed you the case study of, these kinds of projects, they it's very important to follow naming conventions for layers, or like I tend to go overboard and like do a lot of color coding and stuff as well. But because I tend to refer to the names a lot, I think that is actually seen very well in this. um, so you can see that the names are very organized, very structural, because because I have a lot of layers um, that this layer refers to. Like for example, for humidity, I want to check what date it is, and that's what I'm doing. I am trying to get the index, which is 1, and then adding that to this name, date underscore 1, and then refer to the date underscore 1 layer, and access information from there. So naming becomes very important, and all the layers are like very structured. So yeah, being organized. Oh, sorry, I by mistake stopped sharing it. Let me get back on there. Yeah, so organizing is very important, and I feel like even before I actually start coding anything, I tend to write out every element that is that needs to be rigged. As you can see, I have like a reference style frame here, and I literally wrote down everything that I would have to code in like each element. I knew that I wanted these separate comps. Like I wanted the city to be a separate comp, the temperature display to be a separate comp, the humidity, the plot. These are all different comps. So I went through like each element and wrote down everything that I would have to code in here. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of crazy, but but this comes in very handy when you are actually doing the code, because you have kind of a roadmap to refer to. So even if you get a little lost, you can come back here and check if you have done all the elements that needs to be updated or like rigged. And yeah, this kind of works like a sanity check. But yeah, um, that's how a basic, I guess, workflow looks like. um, it kind of feels daunting sometimes, but I would say it's a lot of fun. um, so yeah, that is the basic workflow of a toolkit. And so just let me, I guess, stop sharing for a while, and if you have like any questions, hi Rishabh, if you have any questions, you can ask me now.
Thanks so much for doing that. It was like very insightful. And yeah, I know I mentioned this yesterday, but for me, still like the most fascinating and impressive part is how organized it is. Like the pre-planning for such a project, it's just incredible. Like this is not something I do, so
Yeah.
that was nice to see. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can just unmute and ask Kruti, or like if you have anything to say, just you can like floor is all yours.
All right, I'll just like share just one thing because
I,
you know it already.
I
So I remember like the last time that Kriti just has shared. I remember we were discussing on the animation thing, like and making it smoother, like back
Yes.
in that day.
Actually, thanks to Rishabh because he helped me a lot in making the animation
No,
smoother.
no, no. I just did a very little thing and nothing much. All credit goes to Kriti only. So in short, like when I saw it for the first time and the how she was like changing the things with the basis of the city and like location thing, that was so interesting and so amazing to see that all these things can be done within After Effects, because I have not even more like I'm not much into like technical thing before, but after like getting on the call with Kruti, I got a good idea. So and sorry to come on late here. I was just stuck in some work. So yeah, I hope I didn't miss much. But yeah.
Yeah. Also, thank you, Rishabh, because he gave me feedback for both the animation for the main display itself, and he actually also helped me with the reel because I feel like at that point my brain was so saturated with the technical stuff that I was just not getting any ideas or like seeing if my animation was good or smooth or whatnot. So yeah, Rishabh really helped me out there.
Thanks so much. But again, mentioning I just did a very little work. All credit goes to Kruti only.
Okay, thank you.
Like, but yeah, like I'm so happy to see these things and like you are like taking up such seminars and educating people about it, because like Kruti comes in like one of our top category for the technical animators in India.
Okay,
I'm
I did
almost
not know that, but okay.
but yeah, I'll let other people ask if they have any doubts and stuff.
yeah. If anybody has any question, they can ask. I actually had a question. So I'm someone who's like very unfamiliar with coding, and so I wanted to know, like, if I wanted to take this up, how do I go about it? Do I go for a structured course, or is it something I can pick up, which is like exploring
That's
with like a
a
little bit of tutorials and stuff?
It's a good question, actually. I would say if you maybe have like basic coding knowledge, then I would say, yeah, it is pretty easy. Maybe not easy, but like you could actually pick it up from looking at references online. Like there's actually a good reference by Adobe, actually, that gives a very comprehensive list of all the expressions that you can use and what they do. But then if you do not have any coding experience at all, then I would say a structured course is very good because it takes, I would say, a little time to get used to the syntax and everything, because it's like learning a whole other language, right? Because now if I because I have been coding since I was like 17 or 18. If I look at like any coding language, any syntax, I can pretty much understand what is going on. But if you don't know any coding, then understanding the syntax takes a little time because there's a lot going on. There are like loops, there are conditional statements, there are errors, catching errors, and stuff like that that are a little more advanced, that I think uh, you would learn it much better if it is a structured course rather than
Yeah.
rather than like just picking it up online. I mean, I'm sure you could do it if like you find a YouTube playlist or something, but at least
Mhm.
in my experience, a structured course is much better. And I would say there are
Yeah.
actually quite a good amount of courses um, on Motion Design School and School of Motion. The
Mhm.
one I did is Expression Session, which is in School of Motion. That one I would say is really, really, really good for beginners,
Okay.
like people who haven't coded at all, because Zach and Noel, they go through absolute basics, and they go through it in a way that is very beginner friendly. And by
Mhm.
beginner, I mean someone who hasn't literally looked at a code before. And
Okay.
they also give very useful resources. I think if you have done a School of Motion course, you know that every week they keep releasing resources like PDFs or like podcasts and stuff like that. But these PDFs, I still refer to them sometimes. Like even though I have been coding since I was 17, I still refer to them sometimes because they're so informational.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say
Yeah.
these structured courses they are.
Yeah, so I'm definitely someone who's like not coded at all. Like I see the thing and I don't want to be associated with it. So yeah, I think a structured course would be
Yeah, like
better in that case.
these these courses they are amazing, I would say.
Yes, I'll definitely check them out.
Yeah.
There's a guy called Desmond Du who has a course as well on
Hmm.
a bunch of After Effects expressions and how it works and how he goes about coding things in After Effects. Um, it was pretty like I've seen a couple of the videos and it was pretty useful for the thing that I was trying to get done at the time. But it gets very deep and extensive. If you deep dive into it, it's an entire course in itself, and I think it's free. It's like some 40 videos. So
Oh, wait, it's
that.
actually 199 rupees. That is,
mm,
but this is like advanced coding. Oh no, there is basics of coding and
I think
everything, but
it's a progressive thing starting at basics. It's
but that
still
is
a little
nice.
challenging. When I had seen it, I still didn't think I grasped a lot, but I managed to like piece things together. That's actually how I code. I just take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and I smash them together somehow, and then start deleting things and figure it out like that. So that's how ChatGPT helps a little bit because it like helps
Mm-hmm.
get some expression going, and then I just build on it until it
Yeah.
breaks. That's fine. So
Yeah, ChatGPT is actually really helpful if you don't know where to start. And I've used my share of ChatGPT while doing the weather project because I had no idea how to work with an API. Like I'm not a software developer or like a website builder, so I had no idea how an API works. So ChatGPT like really helped me to get started. But of course, for me, ChatGPT is like syntax and like the way it structures the code, it drives me nuts. But
yeah, I'm sure.
but like at least as a starting point, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Do you think it would be of help to work with a coder or a developer rather, to create some specific type of API based animations for this kind of thing, or is it something?
I guess yes. Even like I thought of it. I think for doing like this kind of API integration, and I would say like if you are doing API integration and everything, it's probably for a website or something like that, where which can take information real time and update. So in these cases, I would say it is probably better to work with a developer who can like build the software or like build the website, um, and work with it, because they are like very, I don't know, completely different fields compared to like After Effects coding. And even for me, understanding like what an API does, and how to get information out of API, how to ship it out, things like these, understanding that took a little time. And I think maybe if you are a coder already, like if you have a lot of experience with coding, then you can maybe figure it out with ChatGPT and like come up with something that works. But like if you don't know any coding, like if you don't know any language properly, then I would say it's much better to work with a developer rather than like trying to break your head over like building these things.
Yeah. Yeah, I've messed a little bit with ChatGPT, and I think it's a decent base to start things. Um, I even tried going a little hectic with it, hectic by in terms of what I'm asking it to do. So there's a plugin called Flow, I think, for keyframes,
Yeah.
for changing the curves, and
Yes.
I was trying to see if ChatGPT could make me a
Oh, I did that too, actually.
it did generate something. It
Yeah,
generated
it
a
just,
UI as well, I think, but all the buttons were dysfunctional. Nothing worked, and
yes.
no matter what I tried to, how many times I wrote please, it just didn't get it done. So it
Like it is very hard to explain to Chat GPT what you want it to do, because it only, I feel like it only understands like part of what you're saying. And then it just goes off the rails. I can actually show you this one thing that I did with ChatGPT. The question that I asked it, and this literally broke my brain. Like I was trying to figure out how to make yeah, like I had an extend script file. So especially for project like this, um, when you look at the code, I use a lot of different libraries. Like for example, this whole code is running on JavaScript node, so that means that your computer has to have JavaScript installed, node installed, then it needs to have like these two libraries installed. So if I were to give this project to someone else who doesn't have these installed, it wouldn't work in their system. It would just give a bunch of errors and not work. So I was trying to figure out how could I make a panel that can do all of this automatically, like connect this to like web, like Google Chrome or something, or HTML basically, which can work with JavaScript files without you having to install anything. And oh my god, like I still haven't looked at all of this properly, but like the amount of code that it gave me was like insane.
yeah.
Like I still haven't had the guts to look at this. Like just
It
look at
seems like
all
a
of the things that I have to do. So yeah, I would say that it is probably better to work with a developer who can probably
Makes sense. Yeah.
understand what is going on there. Like I still have to like look this up and figure out what is going on. But yeah, I think a developer would probably know this a little better than me,
Yeah,
at least right now.
had a similar instance with ChatGPT. I was looking for some expressions, and it gave me a big bunch of code, and then I tried them and it was not working, and I kept asking ChatGPT, it's not working, and I explained all the errors and stuff. Then finally, after 7 different iterations of coding, it gave me 2 lines of code and it worked. Why could I just give it in the first instance, man? Crazy.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yes, ChatGPT's thing is like that, I guess. And it will say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not understand," or like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I will try this again." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah."
That recent stint I had with it, I was trying to get it to write me like I wanted to select a layer and then in After Effects and then make it rotate by 15 degrees every time I duplicated it,
Mm.
which should be a simple enough
Yeah.
piece of code. I
Yes.
think, yeah, like I had no clue how to do it, and I asked it the wrong word. So I asked it to write me a script instead of, and then it gave me a page
Oh.
or some like 2 pages worth of code, and I was like, something seems really wrong, and I started going through it, and then it just clicked to me that I can make this an expression instead and see
Mhm.
if that works, and it just gave me like 4 words as the expression instead, and then
Yeah.
I copy pasted that, and it worked beautifully. and and it just felt really like I felt really stupid at the moment because I'm like, like
Yeah.
I
Oh
got
my
my
God. The
syntax wrong,
words.
GPT got its syntax wrong as well. And
Yeah. The words you use
yeah,
affects a lot with what ChatGPT outputs.
yeah, it's very face value, so it just picks up on anything.
Indeed. But it is like, I feel like it's a very good starting point, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think there is also like a plugin or something called Klutz GPT, which is supposed to
Yeah, there
give
is.
expressions. I've never worked with it because I feel like I don't trust anyone with the code I write. Like if I have to write something, I'll just write it on my own.
Yeah, it is
But
also paid. I think when you, it's not paid when you download it, but once you start to use it, it's some kind of
yeah.
subscription model, I believe.
Oh, it's a subscription model. I
I
thought it
think so.
was okay.
But you pay at the point when it's already in your software, so it's like not
Ah,
it's not payment in the first download. So it's
okay.
a
I
little
thought it
sneaky way
was
of.
totally free. Like you just need to connect
Yeah.
your OpenAI account. Like I thought Flux GPT is a free tool.
To download, but once it's in your, I was really happy. I was like, oh wow, this is going to be great. I can just select layers and do things. I don't know if they changed it, but I believe it was a paid thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I think even well, that is this is something else, but there is another plugin called Data Templater that is actually very good if you have like a single template and you want to export many animations using like Google Sheets or something. Plugins they are. I feel like even that's an aspect of toolkitting also. Like there would be some projects where I would have to write like custom scripts which would work only with that specific project. Uh, not plugins per se, but expressions can only do so much. I would say scripting can do a lot more, especially when it comes to like automating and stuff like that. Or like, for example, if I like, let's say I want to create drop downs based on like the layer names or something like that. That would not be possible with expressions. Like expression does not have the capability to do things like that, but you can do it with scripts instead, like very simple scripts, nothing extravagant, but you can run it and it would um, like create it automatically. And actually, like there was this one project where I don't know how much I can reveal, but anyway, the essence of it was that the toolkit, the technical director got a whole bunch of files, like 800, uh, maybe not 800, but like at least 400 different files toolkit. This was like for an online sports broadcast thing, and while toolkitting them, there was a lot that needed to be done. Like you had to create drop downs for colors, and you had to create a few check boxes. You had to clean up the project structure, like the folders, the layers and everything, they had to be cleaned up. So doing that for every single file would be like a nightmare. So the technical director wrote a script that we could just run every time. Not every time we opened the file, the first time we opened the file and like saved it. Once we ran that file, the project looked entirely different. Like all the folders was structured, and it was consistent with every other file, and the controller layer was created automatically with the drop downs and the check boxes and sliders, whatever was necessary. So all of this is not possible just with expressions, right? You had to have a custom script to do that. So toolkitting is, I guess scripting is also a part of toolkits, but yeah, it is fun, I guess. But like the first script I wrote, that was like so, not daunting, but like frustrating. Like as soon as it worked, I was so happy. I was like, oh god, like I was just doing something very simple. Actually, I think I was just doing this thing where I had like a marker on the I don't know, a marker on the timeline, not on a layer, but like all the layers had to be trimmed at that marker's length. This is useless. I don't know if any project would have a scenario where like you would change the marker and like all the layers would get trimmed. Like I just wanted to check if I could do it. But oh my god, it took me so long to get that done.
That
It
actually
seems
sounds
very
like a very
simple.
cool, like useful tool, like a script to have.
Yeah.
If
But
you can,
maybe
Yeah,
for
I
like
think so too.
Hmm.
like if you have markers on like a layer, and then I don't know. Yeah, I was actually like planning on doing some little scriptlets that I can give to people, but like I just don't have the time or like enough ideas, I guess, to do. Because I feel like every plug or like every necessity already has a script somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think if you look hard enough, I'm sure you'll like find the script.
Are they called scriptlets? Is
Yeah,
that
the
what they?
scripts, yeah.
No, that's a new term.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, but I'm also sure like there are new problems every day, so
that is true.
that someone hasn't solved. So there's always space for that.
Yes, indeed.
And
But yeah,
I think we can wrap up now because
mm,
it's also getting late.
yeah, it is.
Um, so yeah, Kruti, thanks once again for doing this session. It was really informative, and like I said, like coding can seem really daunting, but having this little peek into the back end of it really helped. So I might try and take that out. So thank you for that,
Yes.
and thanks everyone for joining in
Yes.
on the weekend.
Thank you for having
Yeah.
me.
Yes, and hopefully we'll get to do a workshop with you in the future.
That'll be
And that'll
exciting.
be, yeah, think that'll really help people. So yeah, thank you so much, and
Yes,
we'll connect soon.
absolutely. And thank you for
Thank you.
this.
Good night, then. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kruti,
Bye.
again. Yeah.
Bye.
All
Bye.
right. Thank you all. Bye
Bye.
bye.